Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Asiba and this is Asiba's Place. I am a military wife and mom of 5. I like to share about homemaking and what it's like to be a military wife. Today's video is about 5 tips to making your military marriage work. 5 tips to ensuring that you're not another statistic of the far too many military marriages that don't last. We all know that the divorce rate in the United States is extremely high, but it's even worse off in the military. So today, I just want to give a few tips that I have found to be really helpful in marriage in general from the perspective of the wife, but especially when it comes to being married to someone in the US military. Now, first, I feel the need to make this disclaimer. 1, I am not a counselor. I'm not offering official marital advice. These tips are geared towards marriages that don't involve domestic violence or any physical or extreme emotional abuse. Again, if you're seeing a marriage counselor, that's who you need to be taking your advice from, but these are tips that I have found very helpful for me and in my marriage, and I just want to share them with you, especially if you're newly married to a US service member. So rule number 1, it's important to build trust early on in the marriage. Consider the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. If you don't like being talked to in a certain tone of voice, don't use that tone with your husband. I'm gonna pause right here, and I am a wife and I'm married to a man who's my husband. So all the advice that I give is gonna be coming from wife, to be given to her husband. Back to the advice. So it's important to build trust early on in the marriage. Don't do something to your husband if you wouldn't like him to do that to you. If you don't want to be called names, anything outside of your name or whatever pet name he has for you, don't do that to him. It's important in a marriage to show respect to one another in any marriage. So it's a really, really good idea to make sure that you're building trust. That goes for words as well as behaviors. If there are certain behaviors that you know would make him uncomfortable, don't do them. And the same goes for him. I want you to always keep the perspective of, if I wouldn't want it done to me, I'm not going to do it to him. So trust very, very early to build early on. That way you can build on that foundation. If something goes down early on in the marriage, it's going to be really hard for you guys to build that trust back in order for the marriage to function. So if once you get married and you're decidedly committed to that person, make sure that you maintain that trust and treat one another with respect at all times. Secondly, you really need to set boundaries. This kind of goes along with number 1 with building trust. Setting boundaries is vitally important, as well as managing the expectations within those boundaries. So if you are uncomfortable with one another going to nightclubs or being around certain people or certain groups, whatever the case may be, that is something that you need to make clear early on in the marriage and stick to it. Not only that, but women, perception of marriage tends to be kind of skewed by what we see on TV or a book that we've read. We fall in love with this character and we have that unrealistic expectations of our husbands. He's probably not going to be Dr. McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. Like there's different types of personalities out there, and you need to decide that you love him and not try to change him. So manage your expectations and make them clear. He's probably going to do the same for you, tell you what's expected in the marriage, and you need to do the same thing. And both of you need to decide, you took these vows, that it's important for the two of you to expect to manage those expectations. Don't expect that your husband is suddenly going to be the kind of guy who pops up with flowers if he never did that before. And also, you really should not compare one another to friends that you have, your friends' spouses, and especially not to your exes. Don't do it. It's a terrible idea. You married this person. That's who he is. Don't try to make him into someone else. If you've made certain expectations clear to him and he's vowed to maintain those expectations, then you hold one another accountable. But don't try to change each other. Don't try to change him into someone that he's not. It's going to frustrate you, and he's going to feel hurt and disappointed because he's not going to feel like he's meeting your expectations. So don't do it, ladies. Next, pick your battles. Everything is not worth fighting about. I know you hear all the time when people are giving advice on relationships to communicate. Communication is key. Make sure you're communicating. While I agree communication is definitely important, not every thought needs to be voiced. If you walk into the room and you see that your husband left his boots in the middle of the floor, just pick up the boots. Just put them away. There's no need to text him and let him know, hey, I just picked your boots up off the floor. There's no need to send him a picture. Look who left their boots on the floor. There's no need to save it. You know, ladies, we're really good for this. Holding on to it to bring up later on in a conversation or at the end of the day. Well, I didn't say anything when you left your boots in the middle of the floor. Well, actually, you just did. You completely ruined it. Not everything needs a fight. Not everything needs to be verbalized. Sometimes you just got to pick up the boots. I've heard the phrase, is this the hill you want to die on? It's not worth dying on this hill, not over boots, not over small trivial things. And obviously this works for any marriage, but the fact is, in the military, you don't get to see your spouse as much as other families do. Maybe he is gone for several months at a time, or maybe he just works extremely long hours. The fact is, you guys don't have as much time to spend together as a lot of other couples do. So it's really not worth making a mountain out of a molehill, making a giant situation out of something that's so small that can just be picked up off the floor and moved out of the way. My next tip is to forgive. We're people. We're imperfect. We make mistakes. We lose our tempers. We forget. Just forgive. Like I said previously, forgiving means you're not bringing it up again. There's no need to bring it up later in conversation or saving it as ammo. That's not helpful to anybody, ladies. Don't do it. If he's a good man and he loves you, and I'm assuming that he does since you chose to marry him, then he's trying his best. So when he messes up, forgive him. And hopefully when you mess up, he's forgiving you too. Along those same lines, apologize. Let's not be so prideful and so holier than thou that we can't admit when we're wrong and apologize. A lot of arguments and disagreements could be eliminated if, when we realize we're in the wrong, we just apologize. If the person in the wrong apologizes and the other person forgives, you can move on. Life is so short and marriage is important. Work hard at it and choose to forgive. And when you're wrong, choose to apologize. My last tip is just simply to love him. You got into this marriage, you fell in love with this man, and even with all of the changes and the moving and having kids and all of the unexpected twists and turns that come along with being married in the military, that's still who you chose. He's your person. You guys made vows to one another, so love one another every single day. If there's something that you know that he really loves when you prepare a certain meal or something, make that meal for him. Just go out of your way to do something every single day that shows you love him. I'm a huge proponent of making every meal, well, as many meals as possible from scratch in my house. So I make my husband's breakfast every day. I make him coffee or tea and pack it with him when he goes to work. It takes 10 minutes. It's not a major inconvenience, but he knows I love him because that's something that I do for him every single day. When the weather is extremely hot or cold, my husband will go outside and start the car for me and make sure that the heat is going or that the air is on ahead of time so that I don't have to get into an uncomfortable car. This does go back and forth, ladies, but again, my advice is for you. Love that man. He works hard and he loves you, and after all, you chose him. So love him and show it. All right, I hope these tips were helpful for you. If you are a new military spouse, I have 11 years worth of knowledge that I like to share, and I'm going to be doing it more and more on this channel. If you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you subscribe and check out my blog post in the description below. I've linked it with more tips on making your marriage work within the military. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.